everyone, welcome to Watch It Paint It. This week it's Massive Darkness Time by CMON Games. We're going to be painting the Orc Flayer boss. That's the sort of shaman from that minion group. And I say we, this week Austin's back, the Game Warrior. If you've not checked out his channel, leave that in the description below. Give that a little goosey gander. And if you do enjoy this video, don't forget to give him a thumbs up here and let's keep him coming back to Watch It Paint It so we can get more content. Anyway, he started off by showing you that he'd primed this model in black, matte black by the Army Painter, and then he's going to begin his base coating using Gorgon Hide and Mutant Hue. These are mixed together 2 to 1, so a little bit more blue, but purple's a lot stronger colour. So he's trying to create a sort of light purpley bluey skin tone for this orc as it's depicted in the artwork. This is a peculiar colour, and we discussed this before he started painting it, that it's a little bit weird that the art represents a colour we can't find. I don't know if it's just the Army Painter that doesn't have this colour. Let us know in the comments if you know of a colour that would be more suitable for this creature, this orc skin to begin with. But either way, that's not difficult to mix. Just a third of the purple and 2/3 of that light blue. Mix those together and then just paint all of his skin. So there's lots of little bits of skin on this model, unfortunately popping through. It's a bit spread out, but arms and legs and feet and toes and that sort of thing. Next, Austin's going to be using one of Army Painter's browns. This is Dirt Splatter, and he's switched to a much bigger brush, as you can see there. And this is to paint on that animal hide, that fur that the shaman's draped all over himself. So he's obviously killed some sort of large bear. This is pretty formidable foe for us to fight if you can kill a bear. Leather Brown, another brown by the Army Painter. This is a lighter brown, so that Dirt Splatter's A, quite dark, and B, quite reddy. I think this is a brown, a very light version. So the Leather Brown by them, and Steel Legion Drab by Citadel, if you've got that one. Or Khaki by the other one I use, Vallejo's. He's going to be using Skeleton Bone to do the hilt of the sword, and the handle of the sword, and the pommel of the sword, the swordy bits, the bit he's holding, and he's also going to do the staff in the same colour, including that stony top bit, the sort of gem, the sort of centerpiece of the staff, so that's in the same colour. Austin's using his detail brush here. I think you could very, very easily be using a larger brush. I think Austin's a bit of a scaredy cat, and I'd be going all in on at least the regiment brush. What would you guys be doing? Let us know. He's also going to move on to painting the skulls that the shaman has on him. It makes sense, right? Skeleton bone on the skeleton bones. So he's got a skull on his sort of waist there. That's some sort of animal with horns. Just touching up the staff there. Just you can't get enough staff touching. And then he's also going to be doing the same again, the skeleton, this skull that the Flayer boss is wearing on his head. So the bone part of that is leaving the antlersy horns to be a different colour later on. He's going to use Wolf Grey. That's a bluey grey by the Army Painter, and that's for his sash there around his waist. And then Uniform Grey, which is more dark grey, more of a traditional black and white style grey, and that's to do some of the detailing on this staff. So the sort of headpiece and one of the straps around the staff is going to be done in this Uniform Grey. Still using his detail brush. He's also going to be painting one of his little bags on his belt in that grey. Filthy Suit, this is the lighter of the Army Painter's greys, and he's going to be doing his stone blade with that one, and just switching back to Uniform Grey again to do another bag on his other side. He's got quite a few bags around this model's waist, and it's going to do him in various greys, so these two are in Uniform Grey. Just getting that Leather Brown again, and that's to paint on this detailed straps that are around the skull on his waist, and he's got like a sort of strap around his chin holding down that skull helmet that he's wearing, that skull cap. Skull cap seems like a good word. I know it's not a traditional skull cap, but it's quite literally a skull being worn as a cap. You can give me that one, guys. I'm pretty sure that's acceptable. He's also painting the strap that goes over the top, so that's all. I think that's all one strap that's holding that helmet in place for him. There's also some straps on some of these bags that are around his waist, so he's going to be painting these in Leather Brown. And then he's got some what do you call them, bangles. He's got a shoulder, a bicep bracelet there, which he's doing in Leather Brown, and now he's painting on that antler that's sticking out of one side of it, the skull there in this Leather Brown. Fog Rays next, so This is a even lighter bluey grey. This is lighter than the wolf grey, and this is to paint on another one of those bags that I mentioned. There's quite a few. Just going to paint them to make it look all a little bit more interesting, a little bit more detail. You could do them all the same if you want to save some time, obviously switching colours, and there'll be different colours, highlights and that sort of thing. It does add to the amount of time these models take. It's up to you what you want to do. There's not many bosses, so it could be worth spending a little bit of time on these bosses. This is Monster Brown that was just painting the back of the fur, that cloaky fur bit that's hanging down. He's going to be using Brain Matter Beige, and that's to paint on these sorts of bandages that are wrapped around this boss's ankles. So that's to give, that sort of cloth bandagey look that we use quite a lot on many things. Probably a better term for it than bandages, but I think you all know exactly what I mean. So let's call them bandages. So the one in each foot there, that's it. That's all the Brain Matter Beige is for on this model. So as I mentioned, just switching a few colours. I mean, making all these different colours is going to make it look better by the end. A little bit of attention to detail, but it is going to be a little bit time consuming for you. Bright gold is the gold of choice. Army Painter's bright gold. Austin favours Army Painter, so every single paint in this particular video is going to be the Army Painters, and that's just Austin's preference. I've got a lot of Army Painters, and I use a lot of Leos. I've got no real preference, and Benson's is obviously Citadel. So it's nice you get to see a mix, and if anybody ever needs to know which colour's which in which set, just drop me a message and I'll be happy to have a guess for you. So this is just some bright gold, as I mentioned, a couple of bracelets, some buttons on his sash, and a little bit of detailing as well. He's going to get Fog Grey back out again. He used that for one of those belts, and this is to add that sort of spiral that is on the head of the staff. When I said belts before, I meant bags on his belt. And that's the base coat done. I've just giving you a quick glance at how it looks before we go on to the next step. I think it's looking pretty good. And obviously what comes is the next. This is the biggest step for me. You could stop there. If that's as far as you want to go with your model, that's a good place to stop. You've got a fully painted model. Looks pretty good. I would advise you go on to doing the washing here, because it goes from pretty good to very, very, very good with next to no real effort at this point. This is fairly easy. He's used some dark tone for the furs, and then he's using light tone for everything else. So that's the bone, the staff, the swords, the belt, the bags, everything except the skin and that pelt on his back. And then for the skin, he's using purple tone. So this is the same as the toxic shade that I used. I think they're exactly the same, but they've got different names. And it's just the purple shade by the Army Painter. So he's going to get all the skin, make sure that goes into all the recesses and makes it nice and shaded. After that, just give you a quick whiz round so you can see. And touching it up a little bit. So here's the whiz round. I knew it was coming. That's how it looks after washing. So I think that looks a billion times better. It's so much better. The skin's a bit too dark, so if you weren't going to go on to highlighting, you could have just done that skin in a sort of light tone, just add a little bit of shade, but you wouldn't get the purpley colour that we're going for in this, and we know we are going onto this highlighting stage, so that's the shade we wanted to use. So he's going to be using Skeleton Bone and his detail brush, and he's just going to start highlighting up the hilt, the pommel of the sword, and then as well this staff. So he's just bringing some colour back in after adding that light tone to it. So he's just catching all the raised edges. So the pommel and the hilt was very easy, just get the flat side where the light would be hitting the front. The staff, I always find this more difficult. It's cylindrical, circular, 3D. It's 3D circular. So I'm never quite sure exactly where to put the light on it, but I suppose the staff was a little bit textured, so it probably guided Austin quite well. And then he's also doing this on the skulls that the Orc Flayer has, so that's the helmet and the one on his waist, just highlighting up all the raised areas with this Skeleton Bone. After that, he's going to use Fog Grey, and that's to just bring back in the colour of the spiral symbol that's on the head staff, the staff head, right there. So just painting that in, just give it a bit of colour, a bit of magical colour. Pretty cool clockwise spiral. I'd be interested to know if anybody in Australia has the opposite direction spiral, being on the southern hemisphere. I've always wondered about that on staffs. So he's also just highlighting up the bag there as well with that Fog Grey. Leather Brown's out now, and that's going to be to highlight up this roby dress skirt part that he's got. And you just want to really take your time with this and just bring in the base color back to all the raised parts. They're quite big and chunky. They're easy to do. Austin's using his detail brush. I think I could do this with my regiment brush. But yeah, do take your time with this bit and just paint in all the raised, get all the edges and get all the raised parts. And that's going to look really, really nice at the end, especially with that light tone underneath. And it's going to give a really nice blend moving through from the shadows to the lightest part where you're highlighting up there. Don't forget to do the leather brown on his those bangles around his biceps and the straps on both of his skulls. And Austin's also just catching all the edges of that antler that's poking through there, just anywhere you think the light would be hitting. So make sure you get right down the center, down the crease of it. And just carrying on highlighting this. The skirt's a big part of the model, and as I said, you've just got to take your time to some extent with this and just build up that leather brown highlight on all those raised parts, and just keep adding it. You want your paint's watered down quite a lot. Leather brown is quite runny to begin with, so that one doesn't need masses of water, but you do just want to add layer upon layer until you've built up the highlight in the places you want it most bright, I guess. So aim for the middle of each part of that robe, and it's going to look really nice by the end. Really poppy. Austin produced a very sort of poppy, so it's very, very close to the camera, so it might look a little bit high contrast, but don't forget we're going to be playing from feet away, so I quite like them to be a little bit poppy and stand out, so you can see that the contrast at a distance, and I personally prefer that. I've obviously, having filmed a lot of tutorials now, I noticed that on camera sometimes it looks a little bit weird, but I'm sure like you guys are all fully aware that they don't look like this in person. So uniform grey's out, and that's to do the first highlight on this stone sword, and then he's going to use ash grey. So I think that's even lighter than filthy, so it certainly looks like it. So this is a lighter grey than I own. This is ash grey by the Army Painter as well, and that's to do the very top level highlight of that sort of stone dagger that he's using. So he's just catching all of those, the very edges. You can see that really, really clearly with those colours, just the edges of each line of that stone. He's going to use bright gold, and that's just to paint back in the gold, really. So the shade tarnished it a little bit, so he's just painting it back in on all the top areas and any of the raised bits. So it was all those buttons on the sash. So that'll give a nice shade around the outside and a bright bit in the middle like it would be in real life. And then Brain Matter Beige is out, and that's just to highlight back up those bandages around his ankles. So just paint the top of each one and any of the individual sorts of strands of the bandage you can get, leaving the shade in between each one if you can. Dirt splatters back out. He's going to be dry brushing this across the animal fur that the shaman's wearing. Now, I personally think that's the wrong time to be dry brushing that. I don't know what you guys think. Let me know if I'm talking out of place here, but I think you should do the dry brushing like straight away. The first thing you do. It's the hardest bit to control, and if you get any on any other part of the model, you can easily cover that up when you're doing the highlighting on the other colours. The rest, you know, Austin's been using his detail brush. That's very, very easy to hit the right places, but I think dry brushing, you could very easily get the skin near the edges of the fur. So I'd always, if you can, and I say always, but sometimes I make this mistake as well, but if I know I'm going to be dry brushing an area, I always try and do that first, and I think that's the right way to do it. But yeah, as I say, let me know in the comments if I'm talking out of place there, and if not, keep that advice to hand and try and do your dry brushing first. He's highlighting the skin again now. Well, again, he's highlighting the skin now with the same colour again. So this is the Gorgon hide mixed 2-to-1 with that mutant hue, producing that sort of light bluey purpley tone that we saw in the artwork at the beginning. And he's just going to be going back through with his detail brush, very, very carefully, very, very slowly, building up the highlight of this on all the raised parts of the skin. So he really only wants that purple wash to be in the recesses in between muscles, next to any of the clothes he's wearing, in between his toes and his fingers, his palm where he's holding both the weapons, that sort of thing, just to give the shadows in those areas. But other than that, we want the skin back to that base colour purple. So this model's quite small. On a bigger model, I'd definitely just be careful where you put in the purple. I think Austin just covered the whole thing, which is completely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people do that, and I certainly did at the start. Now I might just be trying to be a little bit more careful with it, especially because purple's quite a chore to paint over. So it's up to you. You probably don't save very much trying to be more precise with it. Dead Black's the base colour for this model. Austin's doing nothing special for once, just painted it straight black like I would have done. there's a few videos before. Check out any that we can find on the channel by Austin. He often does quite a special base for you guys to see, and you can apply those to this if you want. Add some crystals, that sort of thing. Fog greys are out, and he's just highlighting up those greys on his staff, just adding a little bit more of light detail in. 3 hours 34 minutes. Wow, that is a long time. I think that might be the longest video, the longest paint job on this channel. I do think it looks fantastic though. You get what you put in sometimes, and at least it's a boss. It's not like when I spent hours and hours on a minion. At least this is a boss and there's only 1 to 2 of them, depending if you've got the Kickstarter. And I think that just looks great. It's a shame Austin's in the US and not painting my models, because I'd quite like to play with that guy. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and don't forget to give Austin a massive thumbs up. Thank you all very much for watching.